Many think every German soldier in World War II was a devout Nazi. Hollywood's tales might suggest so, but history is never so black and white. In reality, over 350,000 Wehrmacht soldiers weren't even German. Surprising, right? Let's dive deep into the life of a Nazi soldier. Welcome to Wild History. Adolf Hitler's rise to power in 1933 was not just a political coup, but the beginning of a comprehensive social transformation. The Nazis had a clear vision: to cultivate unwavering loyalty from the very heart of German society, its youth. Imagine a generation of preteens, filled with innocence, suddenly inundated with a singular, corrosive ideology. They hadn't suddenly become ardent followers of Hitler overnight. Instead, they had 6 crucial years from 1933 to 1939, where Hitler's reign seeped into every aspect of their lives, subtly molding their perspectives. Erika Mann, a German immigrant, penned her observations in a 1938 book. She painted a chilling picture of children's lives under Nazi rule. A simple greeting, once a neutral gesture, was transformed into an echoing chant of allegiance. Hail Hitler! Once a phrase highlighting salvation and divinity, became an incessant reminder of Hitler's authority. This phrase punctuated their days, from the moment they met friends on their way to school to the silent prayers they whispered at night. The Third Reich's indoctrination reached even deeper. By the time of World War II, young Germans had a mandatory enrollment into the Hitler Youth or the League of German Girls. It wasn't just about donning uniforms or saluting flags. It was about entrenching the Nazi worldview. Camping trips, seemingly fun outings, became rigorous training grounds. Even school books underwent revisions to reflect the Nazi dogma. But were these efforts entirely successful? While some children reveled in these new activities, viewing them as exciting escapes, others grew weary of the constant ideological bombardment. And the guardians of these programs? Often they were older Nazis, their vigor faded, replaced with bitterness and a brutal, unyielding approach to their young charges. The culmination of this brainwashing was displayed at the Night of Broken Glass in 1938. Fueled by propaganda, many of these indoctrinated youths unleashed their fury on the Jewish community, smashing shops and terrorizing Jewish citizens. An older generation, untouched by this intensive Nazi education, looked on, their hearts heavy with horror and empathy. Yet, it's important to remember that not all young folks were brainwashed by Hitler, and not all older folks were saints. But the different ways they reacted to how Jews were treated shows just how much the Nazis had affected the younger generation. Auschwitz. It's impossible to discuss Nazi Germany without addressing the darkest chapter, the Holocaust. Many of these very same youths who were shaped by a relentless stream of propaganda inevitably found themselves as guards at concentration camps. But how did they perceive this grave responsibility? Let us journey back through the poignant words of Oskar Gröning. Aged merely 21 in 1942, Gröning was stationed at Auschwitz. The young man, fresh-faced and yet with an ultra-nationalistic upbringing, was instantly thrust into the bleak procedure of unloading Jewish prisoners. They were separated immediately based on age, gender, and health. Those deemed unfit for labor were marked for immediate termination. Such a sight was undoubtedly horrifying, yet Gröning's upbringing had conditioned him to see Jewish people as adversaries. In his mind, even innocent children were potential enemies because of their Jewish heritage. Gröning, like many of his peers, left stable professions to serve in the army. Many of them, including Gröning, had no prior knowledge of the concentration camp's horrors until they were assigned there. On being posted to Auschwitz, he found himself in the familiar role of a clerk, mirroring his prior bank job. But in stark contrast, he was now counting currencies confiscated from innocent prisoners or categorizing seized goods, which included diverse currencies and even bottles of liquor like Greek ouzo, French brandy, and Italian sambuca. Each item was a silent testament to the diverse lives abruptly disrupted. One of the more surreal aspects of Gröning's recollections paints Auschwitz's main camp as bearing some resemblance to a small town. There were whispers and rumors, stores selling vegetables, a canteen, and even a cinema. The camp featured a theater with regular performances, dances, and a sports club exclusively for Nazi guards. This juxtaposition of everyday life against the camp's dark purpose is unsettling. On one side, the unspeakable atrocities against the Jews, and on the other, a bizarre attempt at normalcy with movie nights and sports events. Grüning shielded himself within the confines of his office. As he moved around the camp, he would deliberately turn away from unsettling sights. Most days, he remained distant from the crude process of extermination. Yet, even as he avoided direct involvement, Grüning felt a warped sense of purpose, believing that he was aiding in eliminating his nation's enemies. It's hard to fathom the mental gymnastics these guards underwent. Some were reluctant participants, others were wholly brutal, but each of them was a product of their times and upbringing. They were intelligent, informed, and in some ways civilized, but their moral compass was askew, skewed by relentless propaganda and a societal narrative that distorted right from wrong. Reichswehr to Wehrmacht. The Reichswehr, Germany's interwar army, was initially skeptical of Hitler. Many senior officers viewed him as a rabble-rouser and questioned his militaristic ambitions. They were not wrong. Yet, in the whirlwind of events that marked the 1930s, the staunch, conservative Reichswehr saw a transformation. In the midst of the bustling streets of 1923 Munich, Hitler's ambition was prematurely ignited during the Beer Hall Putsch. The Reichswehr's bullets met Hitler's followers. The event, while a failure for Hitler, was a prelude to the dance of power that would soon ensue. Hitler's tenacity saw the rise of the SA, Sturmbannführung, the stormtroopers, his own formidable force. By 1934, however, the tables had turned. The chess game of power saw Hitler sacrificing his SA, and even its leader, Rome, to win the military elite. In a move of unmatched political craft, Hitler solidified his bond with the military, and the Reichswehr gave way to the Wehrmacht, which would serve the Nazi state from 1935 to 1945. The soul of the army was then altered. The military oath, an age-old pledge, shifted from the German Constitution to Hitler himself. Words, simple yet powerful, tethered every soldier's fate to one man. As Europe's map was redrawn by the marching boots of the Wehrmacht, not every footstep was that of a Nazi believer. Many soldiers wore their uniforms with a simple aspiration: to defend the German homeland. Yet, under the shadow of the swastika, an insidious strategy was at play. Soldiers were supplied with Pervitin, an amphetamine, to keep them relentlessly marching, conquering, and fighting. The Eastern Front would put these drug-powered blitzkrieg tactics to the test. Initially, the Wehrmacht saw success, but Russian winter awaited, cold and unforgiving. German soldiers, once the mighty invaders, now seemed like fragile, frostbitten specters in an icy wind of Stalingrad. Sleep was a luxury as the relentless Russian resistance pierced the night with gunfire. The dream of a Christmas return faded into the bleak, white horizon. Yet, in the face of such adversity, many held on to a glimmer of faith in the Führer. But not all were mere pawns in Hitler's game. Some valiant souls within the rigid army structure defied orders, sheltering Jews, aiding civilians, and even plotting against Hitler, as evidenced by the July 20th plot of 1944. It's crucial, however, not to oversimplify this complex tapestry of loyalty, ambition, and resistance. While the Wehrmacht did eventually side with the Allies against the SS, the Schutzstaffel, elite guards of Hitler, this didn't absolve them of Holocaust involvement. Research consistently unveils the extent of their willing participation.